there. Welcome to the LSAT Demon Daily. I'm Matt Dumont, an LSAT teacher and tutor at the LSAT Demon and 3L at the University of Maryland School of Law. With me is Sarah Czochanski, a master's student in intelligence analysis at Johns Hopkins University and a recent Demon student. How you doing, Sarah?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing
happy
great.
to be here.
I'm happy to be here too. I'm happy because we're here to talk about your journey and your LSAT success, which is so awesome. I'm thrilled that you were willing to come on the show and talk about it. And so I'm going to start off with asking, what was your journey? Where did you start from with your cold diagnostic, and where did you end up?
Well, numerically, I started out with a 144. And
totally in the wheelhouse of what's pretty typical of people, right? Like a lot of people start in the 140s. Where did you end up?
I ended up at a 161.
That's
which
great.
I was really happy with. It took about 9 months to get there, but I was so happy to go up 17 points. 17
points of improvement, and you were a different candidate. 144, if you improve like, say, a couple of points to 146, 148, you might get into some of the schools that are really kind of at the bottom. But with a 161, you're getting into good schools for free potentially. And I just want to highlight how big of a difference that is. So kudos, congratulations to you. Did you think about continuing to study and maybe pushing for a couple more points?
I did think about that. And if this admission cycle doesn't go as well as I hope, maybe I'll do that.
Okay.
I did take the LSAT when I started my journey twice, and I got 145 both times. So I already have those 2 tests on the record. So I only have one LSAT left for the 5 tests in 5 years. So I'm just anxious about using that up. But I'm not opposed to that. I just need a little break right now because when you're at it for too long, even though you're making progress, it gets a little, when is this? Am I actually making progress? You start to second guess yourself and question yourself. And right now, I'm glad to see that I made the progress, but I just want to take a moment and breathe and just see what happens.
Totally. So are you in the application process now then? Because you said you're going to see how this application cycle goes.
Yes.
So what kind of law schools are you looking at? Where are you looking?
So I live in New Jersey, and for financial reasons, I kind of want to stay local. I mean, unless there's a great opportunity elsewhere, I'm not close to that. Yeah. So in New Jersey, there's Seton Hall and Rutgers. So I'm definitely going to apply to those schools. But also the city's pretty close. So there's New York Law, Brooklyn Law, Pace. Well, Pace isn't really the city, but nearby. So is Hofstra and Cardozo, and maybe Fordham's a reach for me right now. But I'm going to apply to Fordham too, just because, that's cool.
See what happens. I mean, if I remember right, you might be a little bit under Fordham's 50th. I think their median
is definitely. So my expectations aren't too high, but
but it depends on what it depends on what your GPA is and that kind of stuff too. And a lot of those other schools, you're totally going to be in the wheelhouse for with your 161. And I would expect some awesome scholarships to come your way with those acceptances, which is super, super great. So I would love to ask you, what helped you in your studies? What helped you get from that? You said you took it twice and got a 145, and then you got a 161. That's a huge, huge increase on the official tests. So what helped you get from the 144 to the 161?
Well, I guess I'm going to start with my whole story because I can't really answer that question without starting from the beginning.
Please do.
So originally, when I was part of the 3+3 program. So basically what that is when you're applying for undergrad, some schools, very few have this, but they have a program where it's 3 years of whatever your undergraduate major is, and then 3 years of law school, and you get in as when you're applying from high school or when you're first applying. And then there's a set amount of requirements, and as long as you meet them by the middle of your 3rd year of undergrad, you can continue with the program. So basically, I had met almost every requirement except for the LSAT score requirement. So I was a little bit crushed about that. But at that time, I also didn't realize the LSAT was something you're supposed to study for a while and work on and improve on. I kind of like I did okay on the SAT in high school, but I didn't really realize that the LSAT was like 75% of admissions either. So I kind of took my chances, and I kind of learned the hard way that that's not how it works. And I gave up for a while. I got my master's instead. Well, I'm working on it. I'm going to get it in 2 weeks. But I decided to go for my master's instead. Thank you very much. And then for some time, I really thought that going to law school or becoming a lawyer was like that I wasn't capable of it because of that. But then I started to look into the process of studying for the LSAT and law school admissions. And it turns out I really hadn't done my research at all. I kind of overlooked that part, which is a crucial part, which it was kind of good everything happened the way it did because now I'm a lot more prepared. But around February, I started picking up studying again just to see like, oh, maybe if I can improve, maybe I should keep at this because this is something I've wanted for a while and kind of my career goal. And I started with the Demon in February. I found out about it on like a Facebook group. Someone just randomly recommended it in a comment. And I figured, oh, let me try it. I tried it, the basic membership first. And then I just eventually made my way up to live. And I think what the main thing about the Demon that helped me was the mindset, the no BS mindset that Nathan kind of perpetuates. Because when you're studying, and especially when it's just you in the room, and you're only answering to yourself, it's easy to say, oh, I made this mistake because of this, or, oh, I really know that. I just like wasn't feeling it. But like the LSAT doesn't really care if you weren't feeling it that day, or if you were thinking, but you don't know. The LSAT doesn't care. At the end of the day, there's 4 wrong answers and 1 right answer. And no matter what excuse you have in your head for why you got something wrong or right, like you just gotta do it, and you either got it or you didn't, and it doesn't matter. And if you didn't get it, it doesn't say anything about your character necessarily, which in the past I kind of correlated the two. But it was really just Nathan's no BS mindset. And also like I learned the importance of like having a consistent routine with like drilling, doing sections, practice tests, blind review, and just pinpointing my weak areas and working on them. But it really just started with that mindset.
That's awesome. And I love that you're pointing towards like the mindset of things. And some of the things I just want to kind of draw out is it seems like you were talking about, hey, my job here is to understand the question, right? It's not about my character. It's not about my intelligence. It's like today I don't understand this particular question. Tomorrow I'm going to understand it. And that's the job of the LSAT, which is so great. I just can't agree with that more. And I'm so glad that came with you, because that's also something that you can take with you to law school, where you go and read a case and you're like, I don't necessarily understand this concept today. That's not a testament of my character. The testament of my character is that I'm going to understand it tomorrow because that's my job. And that's so great. It's such a valuable lesson to learn from the LSAT that carries over into law school. That's so awesome. Okay, so you studied with us for a while. You did some basic, you did some live. What Demon stuff really helped you, you think, the most? You talked about like some drilling and that kind of stuff, but what's the stuff that you like really got those clicks, so we could point some people towards those things?
I definitely the live classes, which I know not everyone is going to be able to afford that or partake in that, but totally. Some of the takeaways from the live classes, and I guess this applies even if you're not in the live classes, is just asking questions when you're confused, especially with like the ask button as well. Because if you don't ask, like it's not magically going to come to you overnight, even if you hope it does. Right. And so at first I was afraid to ask things because I thought like, oh, I should know this, or it's a little silly that I don't. And it was really in a class with like Francesca that I realized like, oh, there was this one time I just kept on asking and she wasn't bothered at all. And she kept explaining till I got it. And it was at that point I realized like, I'm really not going to get it unless I start doing that. So I guess just asking questions was a huge thing. So I didn't really use the ask button that much, but I guess for people who don't have live, the ask button is a great feature. But also realizing that you have to kind of have a plan that you have to stay committed to. That's another thing that really solidified, because without the plan, and even also without the practice test and the blind review, if you're not really doing the practice test, it's really hard to gauge where you are, which at the beginning, I don't think that's as important. But as you're moving along,
It's good to
it
check
really
in here and
shows.
there, right?
Yeah.
Like to be like, hey, I took my cold diagnostic a while ago, and now like, where am I? Question mark. It's good to it's good to check in with that. I think
Yes.
periodically. I wouldn't recommend it even every week, but like once a month, twice
Yeah,
a
just
month,
staying
maybe. Yeah,
consistent,
totally.
making sure it's not all like um for well, I don't want to say it's not all for fun, but just making sure it's worthwhile what I'm doing. And if I'm not, that's okay. But I guess if I would realize that, I would kind of just modify what I was doing and see where I was
Yeah.
going wrong.
Yeah. Like what's working? Are you getting results? And those results might be small at first or small at last. But as long as you're making some sort of progress, then you can go, okay, this seems to be unlocking things for me. Okay. So you talked about study routine. Like what was your study schedule? How much did you study a week, for instance, or per day, or like what was your sort of routine that you regularly adhered to?
So what I tried to do from the beginning was an hour a day. And I kind of aimed for that 6 days a week. Um, and sometimes I stuck to it better than others. But
Sure.
as I kind of started moving forward in the journey, I kind of tried to make that hour 2 hours when I had time. And towards the middle of my journey, I started to do a practice test like once a month. And then towards the end, it became like every 2 weeks just to make sure like, am I really ready for this? I didn't want to waste my attempts because I don't really have that many left because of the beginning of my journey. I just tried to do an hour a day, which became 2 hours a day, which then became the practice test every month.
Yeah, and of course you were doing other things while you were studying. Getting your
Yes.
master's at the school that's incidentally right down the street from me at Johns Hopkins here in Baltimore. Though I understand they have campuses elsewhere as well,
Yes.
which is so great. Like you didn't say, "Hey, this is the only thing I'm doing." You carried on with your life and got additional things that are going to help you in your life and in your career, while also studying, but making it a priority, right? Like an hour or two a day was enough to make progress if you said, "Hey, this is a really important hour or two a day. I'm going to get some clicks out of this. I'm going to squeeze these berries for their juice."
Yes. And I think two of the biggest like revelations from the demon I had was one, making worlds, because I guess like you kind of do that and you don't realize what they are. So that was
Mhm.
like a huge major click.
Talking
And then
about
there
worlds and
was
logic games, right? We're baking in the
yeah.
rules, we're solving the system we're doing that work up front in order to answer the questions really quickly, which is absolutely you're building the car
It
once,
changes
it
everything.
changes everything. It's so good. Okay, awesome. So worlds, great, awesome. What else?
And then there was this one podcast over the summer that discussed reading comprehension and how when you're reading the sentences, it should be I think like Mario Kart or Super Mario, maybe. I'm not too familiar with the video game, although I know it's pretty iconic.
Yeah.
But when you're reading a sentence, if you don't get it, don't wait till like the end of the passage to reread the whole thing. Like if you don't get the
Mm,
sentence, reread the sentence there. That each sentence was kind of like a check mark at the end of like Super Mario. And like if you don't get that check mark, you got to go back. And that's what I started doing with reading comp over the summer. And it helped me like not days off during the passages. And even though it would have been tempting to do so, and you think, oh, I'm going to save time, and then you end up wasting more time. And that was a
yeah.
really helpful trick too.
I'm gonna also double down on the idea that that's a really useful skill to cultivate and like habit to cultivate towards your law school, because you're going to be reading so much in law school, like 500 pages a week type things, which seems crazy, but 1L is hard. There's a lot of reading there. You're going to be reading for multiple classes every week, a lot of material, and you don't have time to like skim this thing sort of haphazardly and then go back and read it a second time or even a third time in order to get what the meaning is out of this case or this reading or assignment or whatever. And so again, like going, hey, did I understand what they just said? Yes, great. No, I need to reread that sentence. Another good habit that you're building during your LSAT studies that absolutely applies to law school, and you're setting yourself up for success there as a student, which is just so great. Awesome. So I want to ask, do you know where you're looking at schools? What kind of law you want to go into? Like, what's the journey from here?
Yeah, so I guess we discussed some of the schools earlier, but as for like law, I'm not 100% sure. I'm pretty open. Last year I was working at a law firm for a little bit that focused in tax resolution and bankruptcy, and
Okay.
I didn't love those too much, but I did learn a lot from like being a legal assistant, and I like that.
Sure.
I ended up deciding to focus on my master's full time, so I didn't stick with that position. But I'm thinking because of my master's, possibly national security law, but I know that's like a very competitive and like selective field, so I don't want to like bank on that either, but like that would be great.
Cool.
One of my professors that I had at Hopkins, Mark Zaid, he did legal issues and intelligence, and he has his own firm in DC, and he's like a whistleblower attorney, and like
Cool.
if I could do something like he does, I would love to do that. I just don't
Right.
know how feasible. But also I think doing estates would be cool too, just because I lost my dad recently and I just saw everything my mom went through, and I feel like it would be pretty cool to help people during that type of time, whether it's probate or making a will or whatnot.
Sort of like helping people plan their retirements, plan their end of
Yeah.
life, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, especially because well, my dad ended up passing away early because he
I'm
had
so sorry.
cancer 4 times. Thank you, I appreciate it. Although that's not the point here.
Sure.
But anyway, I guess that experience kind of taught me that's a really tough time in people's lives, no matter like if what role you
How
play in
well
that.
prepared you are.
Yeah. So just to have someone who knows what it's like and that's competent and cares and can take care of things for you that you can trust. So whether you're doing your arrangements before or after the fact, whether that means enjoying time with your loved ones in the present or being able to cope emotionally after the fact when somebody is gone, just it's one less problem kind of. So that's
Sure.
definitely something I'd want to be interested in. Maybe if that's not my career, maybe even as like pro bono, just because of my past history, because
Yeah.
that's something near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, no, and that makes sense. And there's opportunities for pro bono things. In fact, as you will learn when you get into your legal professionalism class, pro bono and like volunteer lawyer work is something that the ethics rules encourage strongly, because they want, of course, attorneys. Yes, we need attorneys to be successful and make money and pay their bills and do those kind of things. But it's really part of our duty as public servants to help people who can't necessarily afford these services get them when they need them. So I'm sure that you'll have opportunities to do that if you look for them. Homeland Security seems pretty cool too, and there's definitely jobs in that kind of stuff, especially in the DC market and that kind of thing. And so I hope that you find that career path. But some advice that was given to me, and I certainly pass on to you and any of the listeners, is have an open mind, right? I went to school with this idea of being like, I'm gonna go be an appellate attorney, whatever that means. And through school, I discovered some things that I really like and some things that I really don't. It sounds like you might not be a bankruptcy attorney in the future, which is
Yeah.
that's a good thing to know, right? Maybe that's not the right career path for you, but you might find something that, like property law, for instance, that's kind of related to wills, trusts, and estates. You might go, that's the thing for me, and just make that discovery in law school. So being open is super, super awesome, but also having an idea of what's kind of inspiring you to go, also super awesome, because that can point you towards some particular schools that could be, strong in that area, have opportunities in that area. And so I think the world is your oyster in that respect. New York's probably going to have a lot of stuff towards Homeland
Hmm.
Security, given the UN and the
Oh, yes.
interests there, the government interests, and all that kind of stuff. Super awesome. I'm thrilled. I can't wait to hear where your story goes. So I would love to ask you what advice you might have for people that are, just starting out or just starting with the demon, those kind of things. Any advice that you might have that was successful on your own journey towards theirs.
Yeah, sure. So I guess the biggest thing first is don't give up. And I know that's so simple, but that's initially kind of what I did, but I ended up re-deciding, being determined is the biggest thing that you can do in your LSAT journey, because that's what's going to push you to study. What's going to push you to improve and see results. So just being determined and not letting like little things get to you, because you might not always see your progress. It takes sometimes a while to see. But if you're developing the foundation for something, you're maybe not going to see that, but it's going to pay off in the long run. But if you don't spend that long time in the beginning, you might not see that payoff in the long run. So that's one. The second thing is, I guess, when things don't go your way, that's not necessarily indicative of failure, but sometimes it's redirects you for a purpose, and you're going to be better off that you were redirected for that purpose. And that might not be the case for everyone, but if you are redirected, my advice would be, maybe it's not forever, but like maybe there's a reason behind it. So I guess be open to whatever happens. And my next piece of advice, and I guess probably my last, is just trust the process. And Nathan's no BS attitude and all that, and the kind of tough love sometimes. It's at first it was a little intimidating. Don't let it intimidate you, and kind of just like trust the process, because if it was ineffective, you guys wouldn't be here. If you guys sucked, we wouldn't be here. But that's clearly not the case. There's this method clearly produces results. But if you get scared away at the beginning, you're not gonna ever see how great it can be. And it's never to be mean. It's always so that you can improve. But it's not always easy to see that when you're first starting.
Totally. So I think what it sounds like to me is that you're encouraging people to like give it the college try, right?
Yeah.
If at first you don't succeed, try and try again.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, there are some people who are going to start this journey and then go, this isn't for me. Great. Like that's a great discovery as well. Or this isn't for me right now, which seems kind of like that was your journey. Like this wasn't for me right now. And you went and got your master's, and now you're going back to it because you have been drawn back again. And as you said yourself, you feel better set up for success now. Law school is still going to be there 5 years from now. For anyone who's thinking about this now, you could go, oh yeah, I could go right now, or you could go get some work experience, or a different degree, or dabble in some other area that is interesting to you. Law school is still going to be there if you come back to it later. And I think you've set yourself up for better success because your journey wasn't a straight line. It was a little circuitous. And now you know more what you want to do. You have better skill sets, all those kind of things, which I think is a really valuable lesson to take away from your journey from my perspective. So awesome. I just want to ask the sort of final question is that if you have anything else to add, if there's anything you want to say that you haven't yet mentioned, it's been just so great to have you on the show.
Sure. Yeah. So don't give up, be open, and trust the process, which is kind of what I just said, but too long, don't read version. And I just wanted to thank everyone at the Demon. I want to thank you, Ben, Nathan, Francesca, everybody. Everybody's been so great in supporting me and just like all the students throughout every step of the process. I would not have been able to do it without you guys, and I say that sincerely. And just for anyone who is on the fence about using the Demon, I just highly recommend it. I can't recommend it enough. And that's just from my own personal experience, because I went from thinking I'm not capable of going to law school to actually being in a position where I can apply and do
Go
well.
for free.
So yeah. So I'm very I'm so grateful, and that's I just want to make that known.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you for being an awesome student in my class and everyone. We may have helped show you the door, but you walked through it. You're the one who did it, the effort, who spent the time getting from point A to point B. And I just want to highlight your accomplishment so much. My fingers are super crossed for all of your acceptances and scholarship offers. Please let us know how that turns out.
Oh, definitely.
Our fingers are crossed for you. And I can't wait to talk to you as a colleague and peer in the legal field. It's going to be awesome. If you'd like to be on the show, please email daily@lsatdemon.com if you'd like to ask us a question or share some LSAT or law school admissions news. Thank you so much for being on the show, Sarah. Thanks for listening.